Welcome to Focus Garage. I'm in the Brett's garage again. We're gonna work on the Fiero. What today we're gonna do is Brett is actually working in the back. He's getting the passenger side door in, the door bar in. So that's what we were missing. And also what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the loop on the top. So that's not a requirement, but we're gonna do it for the safety, for our own safety's sake. And then another thing we found out was that the door bar on the driver's side is half an inch. The distance between the lower and the top is half an inch shorter. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a third bar at the bottom of the door that will go right there. And that will give us an extra, safety, and then we will exceed the requirement.
That exceeds expectations. That's a 4.
That's a 4. And then maybe we'll move up in the pay scale or something like that, or not.
Okay.
But either way, what I'm gonna do is we received the part for the coolant hose that we were missing, so I'm gonna hook that up. And earlier we flushed the coolant tubes and there were coolants in it, so that's a good sign, because everywhere we look in this car we find hornet's nests. So we were really afraid that we will have some hornet's nests inside the coolant pipes. So when we were flushing them and there were some coolant, so that's a positive thing. So that tells us that the coolant pipes are a-okay now. We're gonna hook up the front radiator hoses and we're gonna hook up the back. So without further ado, let's get to work. And the first thing I will show you guys are the coolant hoses while Brad is working with his tubes and measuring tape. So I don't know if I showed you guys the front setup. So we have the Fiero hoses connecting to the radiator, the thick radiator, and we do have a Saab temperature switch there that would run the fan. And then these aluminum tubes run through the car right next to the fuel tank.
The thermostat switch will close the ground on the relay, so we'll have 12 volts going into the 30 point or the 30 pin on the relay. Then we'll just bounce that over to the signal feed, and then we'll go to the ground. The ground will go through the thermostat switch, and whenever it exceeds whatever that is, 200 and something degrees, it'll kick the...
We're not going to have a manual switch. That way we're not forgetting to turn it on.
If we really want to, we can add a manual switch, but it's really not necessary.
Yeah. The relays work fine as long as you can get them wired up correctly. So coming in this side, so we're using half of the hose from the Fiero. The other half is from the Saab, because Saab does have a weird 1.5 inch hose going into the water pump, and then next down to 1.25 inch, and the Fiero uses 1.25 inch. So that's the only weird side. That's why we are using the half of Saab with the Fiero parts.
Yeah. But they meet up pretty nice. It doesn't look like it's gonna have any weird rub points.
No, I mean, it has a clearance enough. We can zip tie it away from the belt stuff if we really want to.
Yep.
But I don't think it's necessary at this point, because it does have a really hard turn over there that it's kind of like.
Yeah.
What I'm really concerned about it is in this side right here. If you look, it goes between the frame rail and the body of the car, and there's a trailering arm that's going into the suspension. It's really close to that, and that's how it is from the factory like that. So I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find it out in our earliest convenient time. But going into the driver's side, we are using the Fiero hose. It's going from the engine to the other tube. So next thing we're gonna do, we do have the expansion tank already hooked up.
That's the Saab expansion tank, and it has a level sensor. So the beauty about using that is we can put it back here and lift it just slightly above the engine. So mid-engine cars do have problems with. I'm sorry, I'm shouting at my earphones.
You're not shouting at all.
Oh, okay.
You should speak up.
Mid-engine cars do have problems bleeding air out of the system. However, the Saab does not. So by keeping the Saab expansion tank back here, we can ensure that we're not going to have any air bubbles that can't escape, and we'll also be able to, it'll naturally bleed the system as the Saabs do. You don't need to open, you know, some of the like the classic 900 engines, you had to like open, there's a port just kind of on top, and it would just bleed out until it pissed water all over the engine. With this one, you just kind of leave the radiator cap or the expansion
cap,
open,
yeah,
and just rip the throttle a couple times, and then the bubbles all disappear.
Yeah, and then we're gonna use the catch, not a catch can, expansion tank. No, this is a Saab one, but the Fiero has.
The Fiero has one too. It's
not an expansion tank. It's a catch.
It's a catch tank, right?
Yeah.
So typically on a catch tank, it's got. So on this one, it's got and sort of an air release from the radiator cap that bleeds back into the catch tank, and then it's got another hose that feeds back in to the radiator on the bottom. That when it cools, it's basically just for expansion and cooling. So
Right.
when it's hot, you know, it expands and it doesn't need all that coolant, and then when it cools down, it sucks some coolant back in. So it's by having that feedback in, it keeps it from filling with air.
So we're gonna use these two tanks and see how it goes. If it's gonna be hard to bleed, if it's gonna cause any problems, we'll find out. We'll find out later on when we overheat and crack the block. But we have another one. They're cheap.
So,
they're like $500 and it comes with a car.
Yeah. So the one option that we have for this is we could connect the Saab expansion tank vent hose to the radiator instead of the catch can from the Fiero, and that's just because it's at the top of the radiator, so it just wants to pull that out. So that's one option. We don't necessarily need to.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, and if it doesn't work out, we can always do that.
Yeah.
But as far as hooking up hoses, it's done. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cap up all the heater core stuff, so we don't need those. We're not gonna use that.
Yeah, we also are gonna skip the throttle. There's a throttle heating loop to help which is kind of silly, right? Turbo car, but the Saabs were designed for cold weather, so in order to get it out of the cold fueling loop, they would run a heating loop through the throttle body, and it keeps it from frosting over. Anyone with Volkswagens knows why that's necessary, because those cars freeze up.
But yeah, as far as the cool, huh?
On your arm, you got to get the ski back. Here you go. Good.
Mother trucker. But anyway, the coolant stuff is done. We're gonna finish up the cage. While he's finishing up the cage, I'm gonna be tackling these wires. I love wiring, so I'm gonna do the wiring for the gauge. Make sure, just label them, get the gauge working, and label them, and be done with it. Later on, we can just run one by one all the way to the up there and finish up the gauge wiring, so we can
It's on the list.
get it off. So yeah, let's continue working. You always measure it twice and cut it once, right?
Yeah. I measured there and there and there. So I'm
So
gonna
3
come back
times.
over here and probably cut like a quarter to a half an inch off of it, about 6 times to get it short enough.
Oh, so you're just gonna start from the top and then go work your way down
Yeah.
the shaft.
So once I get it cut, I'm gonna go ahead and do the fish mouth on this end, and that will tell me exactly how much. That'll give me a much better idea.
Okay.
And then.
I mean, that's everybody does. They start from the top of the shaft and then just go down in the shaft till it fits.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just the tip. Now we can see how far off I was. Convertible, because racing is stupid.
convertible is like.
So light, so fluffy.
Grinder would have been better.
Grinder probably would have been easier, but also more messy.
Is it easy to bend?
Strong boy.
Do you need the
it's
grinder?
It's double layer, probably like nearly 16 gauge. The nibbler would be pretty sweet right now, but I don't know if it's strong enough to do 2 pieces. That's what I was saying, like plasma cutter would be like, whoop.
Well, it's gonna. I think plasma cutter is gonna drop so much more stuff on the car than the grinder.
And the grinder? Well, the grinder's gonna throw it over there, and over there too, and then some in there. And I don't have a cut disc on the grinder right now. I have a grinding disc.
Okay.
Okay, just give me a screwdriver, and I'll see if I can.
All right, so we're gonna do another task rather than trying to finish up the cluster because that gauge cluster has the 2 plug. We're running 1 plug, so those are all completely different. We need to tear down the other car. So what we're doing is we're doing the clutch line that Brad connected to the clutch.
Master cylinder.
Oh, the master cylinder, and this line is gonna follow the coolant pipe, and it's gonna go all the way into the car and hook up to the manual transmission. So that's what we're doing. They're all secured by Saab tappers and P-clips. One of them is gonna be right here, another one's gonna be right there, and so on and so forth. Goes all the way to the back. So that's what we're gonna do today,
So you got
and finish
your,
it up.
Impact set on a 1.
All right.
One's loaded on there. Just start.
Alright.
Just knock that off.
So that day we had 2 failures. One was the gurney bar. It was the bend was too much. It was 20 degrees. So once we start cutting it, we cut too short. So we couldn't really get it in there. Like you guys could see, we were struggling with trying to get it in there. We cut the roof and all that stuff to make some room. But unfortunately, we just cut it too short at the end, and so it was just like wiggling there. And we failed there. The second failure was the clutch line. I was trying to install something. I was trying to mark off something off the list that it's easy, that, you know, anyone could do. Unfortunately, I was not one of those persons that could do it, people that could do it. So I bent it too many times, and the steel line kinked, and so we trashed that line anyway. We trashed that line because of me. So what we're going to do is we're going to try, our goal is to get this engine in and out half an hour. That's our goal. Hopefully we'll reach that. But to be able to reach that goal, we just need to have a dry connect on the clutch lines and other stuff as well. So we're going to build a clutch line with a dry connect. So when you connect it and disconnect it, what dry connect does is like it does not leak, and it's airtight. So once you connect it back in, it's airtight. You don't have to bleed the clutch. So we're gonna do that for clutch line, and I was like in the best scenario would be the coolant lines, and also the fuel lines would be dry connect. So that way we can just like and then just like take them out and then put them back in, and we have no coolant leaks, we have no fuel leaks, and we have no clutch line leak, hydraulic fluid leak. So that's our goal. That's what we're gonna build later on. I will show you guys the process of that as well. But today, that day, that's all we did. We basically finalized the coolant and then broke some parts. So that's what happens when you're building a race car and you're not too careful and not too patient, and that's what happens. So thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, I will leave Brad's personal phone number down below again, and you guys could reach out to him, send him pictures or stuff like that. Whatever feels like. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. We do have a lot of different content coming up, so yeah, it helps us push forward. Kudos to all.